Today we welcome the CEO of Matchroom Boxing, Frank Smith, to the room where it happened. You're about to find out how one of the most controversial fights of all time actually got put together. So just how much are Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul going to walk away with? Why has one of the great British fighters of all time gone from scrapping against Klitschko and Usyk to taking to the ring against a YouTuber? This conversation is going to break the fight game down in a way that you have never heard before, as we welcome to the room where it happened, Frank Smith, in partnership with our good friends at IFS. Frank, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Nice to see you. So, what room would you like to take us into to start the conversation?
Probably the room when I found out that Anthony Joshua could be fighting Jake Paul. And I was, what was it now? It was 2 weeks ago. And I couldn't quite believe it. I was away at a show it was the Eubank Ben fight week. So the start of the Eubank Ben fight week, I was in my hotel room. Eddie called me and he was like, I think we're going to do this, And I was thinking, is this bloke delusional enough, not Eddie, but Jake Paul, to actually go through with it?
So you knew that there was conversations happening already or not?
I knew there'd been initial conversations, but this was the point where it was like, this is real, this could happen. They've come on with a proposal and you're sitting there thinking, wow, it could be real.
So what, in your world, what does a proposal look like?
Really the key terms are date, money, and not so much for a heavyweight fight, but normally weight. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. And then from there, you start building out, it's a 30-page contract that you start working through. But money is always the driving force in boxing, obviously.
And was that the driving force for this fight?
100%. Yeah. I mean, but AJ will get a lot of stick from people. Yeah. And people saying, his legacy. He'll never get the respect, I don't believe, anyway, regardless for what he's done. So for this one, it was like anyone saying to you, do you want to go and do your job? But a really easy version of it for a boatload of money. We'd all go, yeah, thanks very much. So for AJ, it was straight away, immediately, yes, all day long.
And what is a boatload of money?
A lot of dollars.
Is it? There's been reports.
It's not his highest purse.
Is
ever.
That right?
He's made, he's been very successful. He's been probably one of the biggest superstars in boxing over the last 10 years. He's made a lot of money. He's boxed the biggest names. But this is up there. I mean, it's up there for how long it will last as well.
How long do you think it will last?
Not more than a round.
Honestly?
Yeah, it's just different worlds.
Yeah.
And I think Jake Paul believes, he's got people around him saying Anthony Joshua is chinny, which is a scary concept that you've got. I love delusion. I love the thing of like giving it a go. But this is the other end of actually being a bit stupid.
And let's just be totally clear on this for people, because I've had people going, well, they've just done a deal and it's going to be like a show fight. It's not a world championship fight, it's a show fight. So they've probably already agreed that they're going to go 6 rounds and then AJ can open up if Jake Paul is still in the fight after 6 rounds. Let's just have the absolute truth about this. Can Anthony Joshua go in and try and finish this in the first 10, 15 seconds?
100%. He would never have done it if there was stipulations, if it was holding him up for 8 rounds. He's going to walk in the ring. And I would like him to step across, onto Jake Paul's side of the ring, one punch, bam, finished. And that, it's different worlds. It's completely different world. Look, what Jake Paul has done in boxing, you have to respect from a business aspect. You'd have to be a hater not to respect it. But when he steps in there with Anthony Joshua, it is going to be unlike anything he's ever known.
How quick does AJ think he can finish this fight?
He's not, like you would have seen his interviews over time. He's a very chilled character. It's not like he's going in there saying, I'm going to knock it. He says, I'm going to destroy him. But it's just go in there, walk across the ring. And I think when he lands that first shot, it goes, wow, this is serious. And I actually think a little uppercut to the body could fold Jake Paul over.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a whole different world. It's all well and good, like Mike Tyson, 58, 60 years old. You're going in there with a prime heavyweight, a 2-time unified heavyweight champion of the world. Like, he does believe, Jake Paul does believe what people say where he goes, he's been caught with shots. Yeah, by elite heavyweights. This is going to be real.
I wonder even if it's safe,
Yeah, I mean, it has to go. Look, if I was representing Jake Paul as his promoter, manager, would I say it was a good idea? Hell no. But our job is we get a phone call saying, right, would you like to do this fight on December 19th in Miami? Here's the money. And you go, well, yes, please.
And the money's been reported. I read online today, I was trying to get the latest, at 140 million for Anthony Joshua. Is that a long way wide of the mark?
It's not quite there, but it's a lot of money. It's not that kind of number.
Right.
Yeah. But look, that's what keeps it going around. There's a lot of talk all the time about what these numbers are, but it's a huge amount of money. It's a huge amount of money for what will probably be a minute's work.
Let's take a quick break to talk about something powering the world around us. Imagine the innovation happening right now in industries like energy, aviation, and manufacturing. Industrial AI is the engine behind it, and IFS.ai is leading the charge. Did you know over 800 million passengers a year fly safely thanks to aircraft maintained by IFS.ai? And I've worked with IFS for years. I've seen their impact up close, and that's why I'm so proud and excited that they're partnering with us on this show. And if you want to see what industrial AI can do, just visit IFS.ai. Proud partners of the room where it happened. So going back to the room, you've got a phone call from Eddie, and he says, look, this is the number. Not 140, but it's up there. Tens of millions, right? Tens of millions of pounds. Is your instant reaction, it's good for AJ, bad for Jake Paul, or do you think about the AJ legacy conversation at that moment as well?
No, I think I've been in the sport so long where you see people, we live in a world now where you do something today and it's forgotten about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got to do what's best for you. Our job is to do the best for the clients we represent. Anthony Joshua has been with us since he was turned out at the Olympics 13 years ago. We've got a lifetime deal with him. Our job is to deliver for him. So when you get a phone call with that amount of money, you're sitting there going, where has this come? Thank God. So it's not, don't get me wrong, we will always look at the optics of things, but we're logical. We're not fans. We're sitting there going, there's going to be people who say this is a joke, but our job is to deliver for him. And that is a fight that delivers for him. So we're sitting there going, happy days, all day long, we'll take the money.
And when you had your first conversation with Anthony about this fight, what was his take at that point? Was he initially hesitant, or was he immediately, for that money and that guy, let's go?
Immediately, yes, immediately. There was no hesitation. You got to imagine, he's been in there with the best fighters in the heavyweight division over the last 10 years. He's never shied away from a challenge. It's not the person he is. So when you say, do you want to fight a former YouTuber Disney star for a load of money in America in 5 weeks' time, he's going, that's a touch, isn't it? Because as any athlete, when you're going in there against Alexander Usyk, you're going to have elements of doubt. You're going to have elements of, this is hard. Like, he's bloody good. Yeah. I would think, I'm not an athlete myself, but I would think that's what you go through. Whereas this one, it's just like, easy. I'd fight Jake Paul for a load of money. So he's obviously thinking, I'll do it. If I'm sitting there thinking, I think it's more competitive, me and Jake Paul, than Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul. So there was no ounce of, is this the right thing to do? It was all day long, thanks very much.
And I want to talk to you about the art of negotiation, because I think that is one of your great talents. And I enjoyed watching the recent Matchroom documentary, and just watching you kind of like, I just think you think very strategically, right, about when people are coming together. So when the phone call first comes in from Jake Paul's people and they say, this is the fight and this is the money and this is the location, what is a good negotiation in that instance for you? Like, did you manage to up the money hugely? Did you manage to get certain clauses or deals in place that you wanted?
Yeah, always pushing to get more money or certain elements that work for you, and we did that in this instance. Boxing, though, as a business, is something that's so much led by ego, and that's the biggest downfall of people in boxing. Ego drives everything. Yeah. Whereas sometimes it's about, is this the best thing to do? Like we've been in places before where we're not promoting this show, for example. It's not on our broadcaster. We did a deal with DAZN to allow the fight to go ahead, who's Anthony's exclusive broadcast partner. And it was about, does this deal make sense? So when it came to the money, we pushed hard on the money. We pushed hard on all of the ancillary terms around it.
What sort of things are ancillary terms?
So whether it's flights, hotels, sponsors, all of the elements that come alongside it. Not so much in this fight, because officials, you could judge the fight because it's not going to go 8 rounds. Yeah. But normally it would be officials. It would be who's walking first or second. But in this instance, Jake Paul's walking second. Jake Paul is the home fighter on the poster, because it's like, who cares? But that's where ego too much gets in the way in the sport of boxing. Now I remember when we made Eubank Ben, going to another one, the first time round, the whole discussion at the end, we got to the point of everyone's making a load of money. And it was like, yeah, but he wants to walk second and I want to walk second. I'm like, who gives a shit who walks second? No one remembers who walks second. It's like, do you want to make a few million quid? Happy days, yes. Or are you going to lose this over the fact that your name's not on the poster first? So that's normally, in boxing, in a sport led by ego, that's normally one of the biggest pieces. Those elements of walk second, name on the poster, home dressing room, that always comes into it.
It's interesting, though, that Anthony is able, and you actually, and Eddie as well, are able to not look at this through an ego lens. You are able to go, for that money, for that opportunity, let's just go for this. I don't think there are many boxers that would do that who've had the career that Anthony's had, because they'd be like, well, I'm the former world champion, I'm the guy, like, let me go second, I'm the guy.
Yeah, I think it comes with age and time in the business. Don't get me wrong, maybe 15 years ago, 10 years ago, we would have looked at it differently. Even working with other promoters, we would have said, no, we're going to do it. We're the main promoters. It's got to be us up there. It's got to be our logo. It's got to be our face. Now it's like, who cares? Does it make sense for the business, both the fighter and the business that we represent, obviously being Matchroom? It does. Cool. Let's get on with it. Rather than letting all of those details, of which are purely just ego, get in the way of making a good business decision.
In terms of the actual, like the finances, how does it actually work from a Matchroom business perspective? Like, I know it's a great fight for Anthony Joshua. How do the finances work for a business like yours? How do you know that you're going to make money from these fights?
We get, when it's a position like that, we get a commission from a fighter.
Right.
So they'll pay us a certain, whatever is agreed in their contract, a certain percentage of the overall money they receive, and we own that.
From your fighter?
Yeah.
Not from both fighters?
Exactly. But, the thing is in boxing is you go through a period of investing millions of pounds into fighters, from the early stage of their career.
What are you investing in there then?
Their fights and their opponents. So when a fighter starts out, say we promote you, right, and we take a risk on you, you're an upcoming fighter, and we say, right, but there's another guy over here, but we pick you over him. When you're going on undercards of shows, we're not getting paid for the undercard, really. Like, we're getting paid for the main event, and then we choose really what goes on the undercards of shows. Right. So say your purse is 100k, your opponent's 50, the ancillary cost, travel, this, that, the other, another 20. We've invested 170 into you in your first fight, right? Just as an example. Then you go through 10, 12 fights before you really get to a point where you're delivering revenue back. So we can invest multiple millions into someone.
You. So like an unknown fighter fights another unknown fighter early on the build. You have to pay your fighter, pay the opponent,
pay all the costs.
And all the training costs, all the camp costs.
Well, they pay that out of the money their purse. Right. But you're paying all these costs.
Yeah, but you're paying it really because you're giving them the purse.
Yeah.
But it's all your money.
You're investing this money, and they may get to 12 fights in, right? And you might think they're brilliant. They get beat, and it's like, wait, we've invested 1.5 million, and this is where boxing's crazy. Promoters are looked at, and don't get me wrong, there's some bad promoters out there. I'm not lying, but promoters are looked at a bit as like the evil devil in it all, where it's actually like, we take a punt on a lot of people, and before you're selling big tickets or you're selling pay-per-view or you're headlining cards, we're like fronting the money and believing in you. And it's like a lot of the time fighters get to the big time and they go, thanks very much, but I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
And they, forget about what's gone on and the investment that's gone on to get to that point.
So on a different kind of fight where you are the promoter, like the Conor Ben, Chris Eubank Jr. fight, how does that work financially for you?
That was slightly different because it's a Saudi show. So Seller, so His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, he does the deals with the fighters. We operate the event for them, but it's their show. But so does
he pay? He does the purse, does he?
Yeah. But say like a show at the weekend, we've got Ben Whittaker, we signed Ben Whittaker. Yeah. We get a rights fee, we get our sponsorship deals, we get the ticket sales, and then it all goes in the pot and we go, right, you're getting X, you're getting Y. The cost of running an event these days is £500,000. Forget the purses. Forget like what you're paying fighters. It costs us £500,000 just to put a show on. And every weekend, we put on 40 shows a year.
Right.
Every weekend you're doing a show. You're fronting up £500,000 just in event costs.
What would be then the average total cost of a night?
Depends on the level of fight card.
Yeah.
But like just the event costs are really around, to put an event on of good scale is $500,000 away from purses. Wow. And every weekend you do it. Say you got a main event and it pulls out. You're sitting there and you spent £500,000. And it's tough to insure these days as well. So you're self-funding that.
So you'd have to swallow that, would you?
Yeah.
You'd have to.
We have done well over the years not to cancel many shows. I think we've cancelled 2 shows.
Right.
But it's just gone up in smoke.
So that is why then, when you have a late pull-out, it's imperative to get another fighter to come in.
Find someone new.
And why sometimes you criticise the replacement fighter, but actually, for you as the promoter, but also for your boxer, who I guess would also not get paid, right?
But also the fighters on that. This is where people are like, we've had it before. you've got a fight, the opponent pulls out, and we go, right, here's the new opponent. And they go, whoa. And it's like, well, if we pulled the show, you'd moan that the fighters aren't getting paid. Yeah. We're keeping the show on. Is it ideal? No. No, it's not ideal. We're not sitting here saying it's ideal, but we're doing the best thing in that situation to try and make the show go ahead. So all of the fighters, you're going to have, normally on a fight card, you're going to have 18 to 20 fighters who have been training 6, 7, 8 weeks for that moment. And if they don't fight, they don't get paid.
And what is a fighter at the very sort of beginning of his career going to be earning for a fight?
Look, it depends on their amateur pedigree.
Yeah, of course,
if you come out of the Olympics and the GB squad and you got a medal, you can be making, these days a lot of money.
100 grand?
Not far off that, for the best of the best.
But that's then, if you've got 3 or 4 of that happening alongside $500,000 cost of them, there's £1 million already disappeared out of your pockets.
Yeah, it's an expensive business. Yeah. Boxing is an expensive business to be involved in. And people don't understand the intricacies and the money that goes into it to make it happen.
I think one thing that was very interesting from my perspective as a broadcaster was when Anthony put out the message going, by the way, thank you to DAZN for allowing me to do this. So DAZN would pay a lot of money to have Anthony Joshua as their fighter. This is on Netflix. I'd love to have some insight into how those conversations went and also how you managed to sort of get the outcome that you would have wanted.
Yeah, look, DAZN have supported him for 7 years now. 7 years, probably 2018 they started with their US business, broadcasting his fights back into the US when he was still with Sky at the time. Then he signed an exclusive contract across from Sky. So DAZN have been huge supporters of his career. And without their support, certain things wouldn't have happened. He's obviously been paid a lot of money in return for that, but you have to appreciate the work that DAZN have done. Netflix are coming in for these one-off moments. They're not interested, though, in the fights that built up to that point. They just want these crazy moments once every 8 weeks or so, 12 weeks. But you have to remember what DAZN have done for him. And that was a process. It actually helped that it was so rushed because the deal had to get done. Because we were told, this is how long we got. If you want it, we need to get it done within this time.
How long did you have?
I think we had about 4 days to get it done. Which, when you think about the scale of it...
Why, though?
Because they had a date. Jake had to fight. He was supposed to fight Tank Davis in November. They moved it to December and they had to get it up and running quickly. I believe a lot of it was down to sponsors that they had locked in ahead of Christmas. So they said, you got 4 days, and it's fair enough. Let's try and make it work, and we'll do everything within our power to make it work.
So when you pick up the phone to DAZN and you say, look, this is rushed, we've got 4 days, but it takes arguably your number one fighter on your platform to another platform. How do those conversations play out?
They're very logical. It was all very sensible. It was actually, don't get me wrong, they obviously they get paid out of it.
Would you guys have to pay?
It comes out of the pot of money, essentially. Yeah. But they were logical with it. They look at it and go, it's in 5 weeks' time. It's not a show that they would do.
Yeah.
Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua at that point. So it's like, cool, let's all make a sensible deal, and we got there.
And I see that it's good for Anthony financially. I see that it's good for Jake Paul because he gets to try himself against one of the greats. Is it good for boxing?
Again, I think we live in a weird time where the reality is 80, 90 million people are going to watch Anthony Joshua chin Jake Paul. And whether you like it, dislike, whatever your view on it is, you're going to watch it. And the moment it happens, this is the truth, the moment it happens, everyone goes, all right, on to the next thing. And you look back at, like Muhammad Ali had exhibition fights back in the day when he was around. No one questions his legacy now. No one goes, oh, yeah, he was good, that Muhammad Ali, but do you remember he had that exhibition? Oh, So we live in a time now where everyone's got an opinion, which is great, and we live in that social media generation. But as soon as it happens, something else mad happens. There's something mad going on in the world every day. This is just one other, like Jake Paul, Mike Tyson happened. No one talks about that now. But at the time, it was, Jake Paul's fighting a 60-year-old man.
Yeah.
And at that moment, it was a big talking point. Now, no one cares. This is the next talking point, and there'll be another talking point the week after.
In some ways, is it for someone who's a promoter like you, is it actually quite an exciting time to be involved in this world? Because mad things happen, and this is like a mad thing.
100%. I think a lot of fighters can learn from Jake Paul. I haven't always seen eye to eye with Jake Paul or the team around him necessarily, but you have to respect what they've done in the business of boxing. And it just shows if you can build a character and then go into whatever area, whether he took that into football or he took it into another sport. He chose boxing because it's something he loves. But look at what he's built. He's put himself in a position as probably one of the biggest active, whether you like him, active boxers in the sport.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fighters can learn from that. Not necessarily, they don't have to do exactly the same thing, but he's a superstar. And that's what, you can be a great fighter. There's a lot of great fighters out there. I say about Andre Ward is one. He was a great fighter. He didn't want to do any media. Didn't want to do any work outside of the ring. So never got to the level he could have done because he was just a great fighter.
Yeah.
And you have to have both sides of it.
How old were you when you joined Matchroom?
I was 14 when I started doing work experience.
Brilliant.
So I was we used to do poker.
Yeah.
I used to be at the studios delivering teas, coffees, pizzas when I was 14. Did 2 years of work experience like in the summers. And then I moved there full time when I left school at 16. I remember saying to Eddie, I met Eddie at a party and called him a tight bastard because he only bought 20 quid's worth of raffle tickets. And I got 50 quid out of him. And I said, I'm going to work for you one day. He was like, yeah. He was 29 years old and he was obviously looking at me going, "Look, you leave me alone, And then I pestered him every day for a job. He gave me a job at the start, but I grafted through all the areas of the business. And then obviously where I am now, it's been 17 years full time. It's been a great journey.
Hopefully you'll enjoy answering this question because I know that, you've not seen eye to eye with Jake Paul and his camp over time. But you can also learn a huge amount from them. Everyone is trying to be relevant. Everyone is trying to create noise. Everyone is trying to create a character. Everyone is trying to cut through these days.
Yeah.
What are the things that you've seen them do that are really impressive and that mean he's now able to step into a ring with Anthony Joshua?
I mean, look, I love putting on shows. So Eddie's passion is the sport of boxing. I'm not saying I don't like boxing, but my thing is I love walking out at an event and going, wow, we did this, And I think when I've been to their events and you see the scale they do it to, and again, we've had our differences, but I said to Nikisa, who's the CEO of Most Valuable Promotions, I said, you should be amazingly proud of what you created here, because those kind of moments, that's what I live for. Mm-hmm. And to see the level they do it at, they're doing a lot less shows. We're doing 40 events a year around the world. They're probably doing 8 to 10. They have more focus on individual events. But I'd say that's one of the biggest things. And I'd say with Jake as well is seeing what he's created and actually not listening to all the bluff in the background. Because really, I mean, everyone writes him off. But he's done exactly what he said he would. And, he can't really win because everyone says, well, you haven't fought anyone. And now he's fighting Anthony Joshua and they're going, well, you're crazy. They say, well, which one do you want? He's going from one end of the spectrum to the other. But his ability just to turn all the outside noise off and go, I'm doing my own thing. Mm-hmm. And whether you like him, whether you like it the way he comes across, you've got an opinion on him. And that's important, especially in the walk, the world he's in.
When you say you love putting on a show and you've seen the way they've built that noise around Jake Paul, what is the secret to a great show?
I think you have to put yourself in a position of a fan. I go to events and I look at every minor detail. There's a lot of people, I've worked my way up through this business and been involved in every element. I'm not saying I'm the best at it all, but I can see, where improvements can be made because I've been involved in all of those bits. I go to events and I think the US is an amazing market for this when you go to live sporting events, the entertainment factor. At the end of the day, we work in a sport where you can't control the sport. And that's with every sport. You could have two of the best football teams playing. It could be a terrible game. But we can control everything around it and the event we put on and the entertainment around the event. And you want to go into a venue and you want to walk in there and go, wow, do you remember that night we were there? And that's what I get when I walk out at every venue. Tottenham a couple of weeks ago for Eubank Ben 2. I got to walk out, 65,000 people in there singing Sweet Caroline, the phones, the flashes of the phones. And you think, just for a couple of seconds, you look out there and you think, wow, we did this. A small part of it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I got in the ring and fought, but you created this moment and you're a part of creating that moment. And I think there's not many jobs left now where you get to be involved in that from inception all the way through to delivery and you get to see it with your own eyes. And they do a tremendous job, Jake and his team, of making sure everything is at the highest level. And I respect that. Again, for all of my differences, I can sit there and go, well done.
And is it strange for you that you're not the promoter for this fight? Like, you have to sit and watch what they do?
It's different, but we've done a bit like when Queensberry got the deal in Saudi and Anthony Joshua went on those shows. That's the ego factor.
Yeah.
That's taking away the ego and going, oh, do you know what? We made the best possible deal for the person we represent. We did well out of it as well. Like, we got paid. but forget everything else. Forget all the noise. It's about just being involved in these events. No one's going to remember who put it on. They're going to remember the moment.
And are there not elements, though, that you say, look, we need control over these few bits?
Yeah, certain
because it
bits.
represents your fighter, right?
Certain bits, but
What sort of things would you want input into?
I mean, more media stuff and what he has to do and ensuring it aligns with what he agrees with. Because Anthony as a character as well as a person, he's never been the outspoken, big, loudmouth character, and he's never going to change. So he's not going to change just for the promotion of this show. So that more around that. But a lot of it is actually people. What you find over time is people put blockers in the way and create problems to justify existence. Like I work in a sport where people are surrounded by 15 people who have all got an opinion. Don't know what they're talking about, and they feel like if they don't say something or create a problem, that they're not deserving of what they're getting paid, and they come up with things. So we're very different. We're just like, does it make sense? Is it all good? Perfect. Let's get on with it. And I think that's what you learn over time, and that's what you see with the best. I see it with the best of the people I work with. They're actually quite simple characters who just entrust things, and it doesn't have to be a big song and dance. It's just go out there, do the best job you can, but I think too many people put stumbling blocks in the way of making deals happen.
And who taught you that?
I think it's very, I get compared to Eddie a lot as an individual, right? Eddie is the biggest showman, the biggest character in the world. And I'm not loud. I never came into the sport or the business to do this. Yeah. I came into it because I love putting on shows. So that was my focus. And we're two opposite characters. And I think for me, I'm in a sport where from a young age, I saw ego destroy things or destroy opportunities.
Like when?
Whether it was with deals, big deals, because their name wasn't on the right side of the poster. It's happened so many
times.
You've
seen fights break down over minuscule, ego-driven things like that.
And it's like, what are you doing? And I say to every fight we represent, if the deal's right, no one remembers who walked in second. Yeah. No one remembers that your name was the other side of the poster. And I think from a young age, watching that, and because I'm more of I sit back in a lot of meetings. Eddie's a big character. He likes talking. So I'm much more there. I can be quiet. And some people will think, oh, he's not that impressive. Yeah. But I go away and then, me and Eddie bicker and have a back and forth because we have two completely different views a lot of the time. And I think that was something that I sort of taught myself early. It's like, don't let ego get in the way of doing something that makes overall sense.
And that's a very interesting observation when you've gone into a business run by Eddie and Barry Hearn, because actually the two of them have traded on their egos. The reason why Matchroom is where Matchroom is because they've told the story of the business. It's not just the story of your fighters. It's, people know the name Matchroom. Yeah. Well, there's an awful lot of other promotions business in sport, and you have no idea of which company is doing the promoting. So it's been an important part of the way they've operated their business as well, hasn't it?
100%. But if you have too many people like that, I would never have worked with Eddie. Imagine if I had an ego. Yeah. Because I sit in a lot of conversations where I will do deals or things, but optically to the public, it's like, and this is what I get a lot of the time, everyone's like, he's useless, that kid. Because I'm perceived to be, I'm 33 years old, but I've been there since a young age, so people look at me as a T-boy. They go, not sure about him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But because Eddie's such a big character, everyone's like, and Eddie's brilliant at what he does. But I think if there was too many egos in the business, it would never work. Yeah, that's the reality of it. If I was the same as Eddie, I wouldn't be here.
And it's very interesting that we live in this world where it's not about saying something that's useful; it's just about saying something. And that undoes people so often, right?
100%. But I think because from a young age, where I was lucky at Matchroom is they involved me in things from a young age. So they put me in rooms, right, where I maybe wouldn't have put myself. Or wouldn't put someone junior, but they put me in that position, Barry especially as well, where it's like you'd sit in meetings and you think, I've got no place to be. But just sitting, listening, understanding things. And like you say, we live in a world where you have to be the loudest person in the room. Where actually, if you can sit there, take in all of the knowledge, siphon off the rubbish and just take that and move forward with that, that's such a skill, to be able to do that.
How much would you personally like to see the Joshua Fury fight happen?
100%. I mean, I don't think he can retire without that fight happening. It's been a fight that's been spoken about so much for years. And probably, when you get asked about it now, is the fight happening? It's like we've done so much talking in the past. Do you know what I mean? Where we've said, yeah, it's happening, and it's not been made. And it's kind of like, it's frustrating as a fan, I'm sure, but it's also we're fans as well. We want to see the biggest fights.
Yeah.
So for me, before he retires, that's got to be a fight that's made. And I'm confident in 2026 it's a fight we'll see. It's not done yet, but I'm confident that is what we'll see.
You know, we had Tyson on High Performance a few years ago. It was funny, we recorded it in a little church near Morecambe. He said, I'll do it, I'll come on, but you need to come up to me. And I was driving around in my car, and I kept driving down these country lanes, and I kept going past this little church. And I thought, well, the sat-nav says it's in that church, but it can't be. So eventually I just pulled up and I went in, and there was a yoga class happening. And underneath this church, this village church, next to a campsite, there was this steps down, and we went down there, and he was in Morecambe, and he'd driven out in his white van on his own, rocked up, just some random old white t-shirt. He sat down, I don't know whether you've listened to it, but he goes, the most incredible conversation about his life and stuff. But that was at the time where he was publicly saying they need to agree to fight me. And that was actually the day where he was saying, well, if they've got until 5 o'clock today to agree. So you hear that from his camp, then you hear this from your camp. Why can't, it just, for everyone, it's the right fight? For everyone.
Yeah, it's the details have to work. You know,
what details though? What sort of things would?
Look, there's been so many conversations where it's been close.
Yeah,
there has been so many times, but whether it was the money, whether it was the titles, whether it was the time frame, whether it was the date that worked. There's so many elements that come into it, and it's happened so many times where I can't even remember the reasons.
Does Anthony want it?
Yeah.
Do you think Tyson wants it?
I don't say this in a bad way. I think Tyson's very he's retired 5 times. He's sort of I'm out of the game.
Yeah.
So he'll want it if he comes back. Do you know what I mean? He might just be in a position of his life where he's I'm just happy. Because he's got his kids, he's got his missus. Whereas AJ still wants more from the sport. Tyson may have a different view. So if he's back in the sport and he's fighting, yes, I believe Tyson wants it.
Do you think it would be a good story in AJ's career as well at this point in his career to beat Tyson Fury?
100%.
I do.
Because that will always be the question.
Yeah.
We go back to legacy, and people will always talk about his legacy, but they'll always say, oh, Tyson would have beat him, or this, that, the other. What a way to prove it.
Let's talk as well about the Matchroom work ethic. We've had Emily Fraser on this podcast. We've had both Barry Hearn and Eddie Hearn on High Performance as well. And am I right in saying, who was it that gave you a note, a written warning early?
It was Eddie. It was Eddie.
Was it?
Yeah, I turned up. So I was filming at a poker event, and I was 16 years old, and I was away in Maidstone at a hotel, right? And I thought Maidstone was like being away in Vegas, because I'm 16 years old. I'm like, wow, I'm away with the boys. We're playing poker. I'm 16 years old.
Sounds like a dream.
Yeah, I know.
Vegas when you've got Maidstone.
No, maybe I'll go back there one time to celebrate this moment. But it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was up playing poker, and I was sharing a room with a guy called James Dawson, who's still at Matchroom now, and we'd worked together for a long time. But I was in bed, and I think, I'd gone to sleep at about 3 a.m. We're in bed, and the phones start going off in the room, and James goes, "Oh, someone prank calling us. This is a joke," because we felt like we hadn't had enough sleep. It was actually the alarms to wake us up in the morning. So we've pulled out all the phones. We're like, right. We woke up at 11 a.m. We were supposed to be there at 9 a.m. I'm 16. I'm crying my eyes out. James is like, "Don't worry, I've done this before. It's fine. You'll be sweet." It was a very different business back then as well, a long time ago. And he was like, "You'll be fine. You'll be sweet." I turn up. I'm still crying on the way to the studios.
Genuinely, you're in tears.
Yeah. I'm a kid. I was a young. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't like a 16-year-old now who's a bit more understanding of the way. Yeah, I was a kid.
And were you crying because you thought you'd blown your shot?
Yeah, and I was just scared. I think I was scared. I was scared of what my mum would say. Right. One of the things I was like, my mum will go absolutely mental. I've been given this opportunity, and I've messed it up after 2 months. So we get to the studios. Emily Fraser actually took my job that day. So I got put in the TV trucks, right? And my job was to note down the cards, log the cards, right, that come up on the screen.
Yeah.
Something like this, doing this. Most boring job ever. It's like 14-hour day.
Punishment.
Yeah. In a break, I've turned around and there's a letter chucked on the desk. I've looked around, it's Eddie, and I open this letter, and it's a final warning. And I'm crying into the final warning. And he's just looking at me I gave you.
How old was he at the time?
He was probably 31, something
that
like
time,
that. Yeah.
right.
And again, it was a very different business back then. He'd sort of stuck his neck on the line to give me a job, give this 16-year-old a job, and I've messed it up after the first month. And I think that was one of the moments where I was like, right, you've got to switch in now. And ever since then, I'm probably still on a final warning now, but ever since then, I've been fully committed. Like, it's my life. It's my whole life. And that's where the work ethic piece of Matchroom, because it's a family business, as big as it is, because it's a family business, you have that element of care. And I've always had that element of care there, like it was my own money, from way back when I was 16, 17 years old. And I've been there so long now, it's like part of the furniture. But Barry instills it in you, and then Eddie. Like, Eddie doesn't get the plaudits or the credit he deserves. Yes, he's silver spoon, come from a nice upbringing. Yeah, he did. He didn't have to do what he does. He works tirelessly.
When he came on High Performance, I said, do you have any regrets? And do you know what his regret was? That his dad started the business. And I think whatever he does with Matchroom, because he has accelerated it to a new level, he will forever have that sense, I think, only that he wasn't the founder of the business.
Yeah. But it's the world we live in, isn't it, where everyone wants to bring people down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's like, look, he's done very well. He's very successful. Doesn't care too much about it.
There are enough kids, though, born to wealthy families who got the opportunity to take over the family business, and they either don't do it, or they have a go and fail, or they don't move it forwards. Like, it's a nonsense to think that just because you've got a wealthy opportunity at a young age that everything's made. I think it makes other people feel better, maybe, to say, "Oh, Eddie's only done it because he had an opportunity." Because actually, is it available to most people? Probably.
That's the world we live in, though, isn't it? Everyone wants to bring everyone down. As soon as you become successful, it's, not sure about this person. And look, to be successful, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's the reality. Not everyone's going to like you. But I think for him it's even harder because it's like just perceived, it's just Barry Hearn's son, and that will always be the way. Yeah. But what he has done is quite amazing, and I see it day in, day out. We work non-stop, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and still our mentality hasn't changed to money. Like, it's a huge business, £1 billion plus business, right? But if we can chase down a deal for 10 or 20 grand, we're chasing down, or even £1,000, we're getting the grand.
Why is that important?
Because it's not losing sight of, where you started. And I do it with all deals. Like, if I go and sell £2,000 worth of tickets to someone, that's another £2,000. It adds up. And that's always been instilled from Barry as well. As big as the company is, it's like, no, you get on there, you get out there, you crack on with whatever you're doing, and you bring in the dough. When I started, they used to put me in Barry's office, cold calling people to sell darts tickets. So I used to sit in Barry's big office, right? And they used to be like, hello. But Eddie would be like, no, put the phone down, right? So you go, put the phone down. Next one, hello, I'm calling the Darts Circus Tavern. He's like, put the phone down. And that's, rejection actually is the thing that probably got me to where I am now as well. But it's like these things, like podcasts or press conferences or interviews. We work in an industry where you're readily available, right? It's constant interviews. I did 11 interviews yesterday at a press event with Ben Whittaker. And when I started out, all I had was comparisons to Eddie, right? And I'm never going to be Eddie Hearn when it comes to that side of things. But at the start, it's quite difficult. When you're 26 years old, 25 years old, you're doing interviews, and everything's filmed, and all of your mistakes are filmed. Yeah. And you have to go through that process of, the only way you get better is by doing more of it. But while you're trying to get better, you're making mistakes. And people are going, he's useless, he is. Or like, he's no Eddie Hearn. It's like, I know I'm not Eddie Hearn. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me, is getting more comfortable doing this kind of stuff. And again, it was never my focus, but you have to go through those tough bits in order to excel in whatever it is.
And what's the secret to protecting your own mental health and your own self-belief, confidence in the world you're in? Because I think of all the sports to be involved in where people feel they are allowed a strong opinion about something, I think it's boxing. They're allowed a strong opinion about the fighters, about the result, about the managers, about the setup, like every single, and like, it's almost like the more aggressive and the more angry and the more strong your opinion, the more clicks you get, therefore the more relevant you feel, therefore the more you have an opinion, and you're the one sort of stuck in the middle of it. And And people often don't see there's a human being stuck in the middle of it. They just see that it's a guy called Frank who must be fine because he's working for Matchroom. It's no problem. What's the truth?
I think I'm a bit of, my missus actually says it to me, I'm the most positive person you could ever meet, right? Every morning I'm like, happy, it's great, another day. Every day of the week. Doesn't matter what's going on, doesn't matter what the problems are, just get on with it. So I'm a bit, I don't understand that side. Like, I read things, I go, that's funny. This guy thinks I'm a fat prick or spotty twat or Eddie Hearn's little bitch. I don't know if you can swear on this, but
you can.
This is
all of that's in the trailer. That's the perfect trailer.
This is like hundreds of comments, right? And I just go, mate, who are these people that are even watching an interview of me? I'm still got that mentality. I'm like, why are you watching an interview of me? If you think that, or like, he's so boring, or he sounds just like Eddie Hearn. I'm like, which one is it? Am I boring or do I sound like him? Because he's not boring, is he? And I think you just get used to, the only people who bother me are people I know who say bad things. If you know me, right, and I'm not saying, again, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I can have a conversation with you and accept my shortcomings or downfall and say, okay, I can understand that. But if you know me and you talk badly about me and I don't, they're the only ones I really have an issue with. If you don't know me...
Has that happened to you?
Yeah, a few times. A few times with people where I had it actually, I made a comment in an interview. It was 3:00 in the morning after one of our shows in America. And I made a comment about the Conor Benn situation. And I said, everyone's got an opinion. And I referenced builders, right? And I said, a builder telling us how to do things about drug testing. I don't know about it. And everyone was like, why are you going on builders? And I was like, if I would have said accountants, or if I would have said, any other job, no one would have said anything, right? I went on my Instagram or my Twitter the next day, and it was thousands of comments of like this guy slagging off his fans. And it was not meant like that, right? And there was a guy who I know quite well who went on an interview with Simon Jordan. He went, it was terrible. He said that. And I was like, you know me, so you know what kind of person I am. And I wouldn't say that in I wasn't saying it in the manner people picked it up as. And that's what bothers me, is when people go out there who know you, who know the personality you are, and it's like start questioning you. That's the only time it bothers me.
And how did you deal with it? Did you pick up the phone and speak to that person?
Yeah, I told them when I saw them. I said, you know who I am as a person. So, for you to jump on the bandwagon because it sells, that pisses me off. But then over time, I think as you get older, you sort of become a bit more... My brother-in-law called me a scumbag in a press conference, and that one was personal.
For those that don't know, you should probably explain who your brother-in-law is.
Yeah, he's Chris Eubank Jr. So we've been on opposing sides for the last few years with the Conor Benn saga. But he called me a scumbag, and that was one of the moments where it crosses over to personal. And I'm like, that moment right there, Eddie, if you ever speak to Eddie about it, I don't care about anything really. And that moment was like, I was raging. And then over time you go, do you know what, who cares? Yeah. I know what I am. And in my mind, as long as I stick to the way I am as a person, I'm happy. I don't really care. You call me a scumbag, I'm not a scumbag, I know I'm not a scumbag. Get on with it.
Does boxing need to be like this? It seems to me like it. Of all the sports, it's got itself into this place where it is all about confrontation. Obviously, it's boxing, but more than that, it's about the verbals. It's about more than in UFC. It feels like
some fights need it, yes, but others don't. You look at Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, right? When they fought, or Anthony Joshua, Vladimir Klitschko, there wasn't a bad word said, because it was two gentlemen coming together. And there's other fights like that as well, where you don't need that narrative. It's just about great fights. But some fighters are naturally going to have that. You're getting in the ring, you're going to have a tear-up, you dislike each other. So it does need an element of it, but it depends on the fight.
So with the fight coming up for Anthony, do you talk to him about what his approach is like? Because I kind of feel like if he goes down this really I'm going to rip his head off, I'm going to... It's a bit like, mate, it's Jake Paul. Like you said, he was on YouTube and the Disney Channel. Whereas it almost feels to me like the best approach for you guys and for Anthony in this next fight is almost... I'm not really going to say much because it's such an irrelevance. Make it feel like an irrelevance in his career. Does that make sense?
But also that's AJ's character generally. He's not the kind of person that you need to say, do this, do that, because you would have seen it over the 13 years of his pro career. He's never been the loudmouth, outspoken troublemaker. He's just always been very respectful. If you're respectful to him, he's very respectful back. And that's the energy he's always had. So with Jake Paul, it's like, I'm getting in there. Yeah, a bit like you said, I'm getting in there. going to go and knock him out and on to the next one. Don't give it too much thought.
Yeah.
And also the difference was Jake Paul was very respectful in his press conference. Jake wasn't going out there talking shit.
Yeah.
So
why is that, do you think?
Because I think he realises what he's got in front of him. And I don't think it needs it. It's a freak show, isn't it? Let's be honest. And by the time it comes round, you can do all the talking in the world. But the reality is, Jake Paul is fighting Anthony Joshua and people are going to tune in for it. So you don't need all the fake bravado.
And have you said to Jake Paul's camp, what does he think is going to happen here? What is he expecting to happen in that ring?
I said to Nikita when I was there, I was like, he's mad. And he was like, yeah, but, it's what he wanted. This is what Jake wants.
Why?
I mean, you have to think money plays a huge part in it, of course. He was under pressure to fight someone real. And could he have picked someone easier than Anthony Joshua? Maybe, but were they available in the time frame? Probably not. So it was limited options, and he's gone, well, let's just go for it. And I'm sure he's going to make a boatload of money.
Is there a risk that Anthony only has 5 weeks to get ready for the fight, though?
No. He's not one of those fighters that's out of camp. Yeah. He's always training in some way. He was out of the ring for a few injuries that he had surgery on after the last fight, and it was about coming back, being 100%, but he's always fit. Look at him. You don't have to look at him. All he does is train, constantly. So, no, there won't be an excuse if he only had 5 weeks, so sorry about the result.
What happens if he gets beaten?
You'll never hear from us. It will be off. I mean, it doesn't even come into anyone's mind. It's just,
it has to, though, because...
No, honestly, I promise, because it's just so wild. Actually, the bookies have got him 7-1, Jake Paul, which is insanity. He should be 70,000 to 1. But no, it doesn't even come into anyone's mind.
It would be the end of Anthony's career if he got beaten.
It'd be a big rematch, though, wouldn't it?
Come on. Would you want that rematch? That's not what you're planning on.
I might take. I'll have a go afterwards. Yeah. But no, look, you can't even. Haven't even thought about it. Not hasn't come into anyone's mind for a second.
And that isn't a risk in itself. That you're assuming so strongly that
it's levels. It's like levels of the highest operator in a sport. Yeah. Going in against someone who's, don't get me wrong, has done a lot of work, but he's never been in there with anyone. That's the truth.
Yeah.
You can't, the gulf in talent, you can't, don't get me wrong, if Jake Paul went on a 30-fight streak of knocking out left, right and centre top 10 rated opponents, it'd be a different conversation.
And is there any part of the planning for this fight and the thoughts around this fight that, Anthony Joshua is not 21 anymore, right? He doesn't have too many years left as a fighter. Maybe his future is in America. Maybe his future is more in the entertainment space. Maybe it does involve doing some WWE or having a presence on YouTube out there. Is there any of that thought that goes into it, a future-proofing?
It wasn't. Because they approached us. Yeah. Because it was never, let's chase down a WWE appearance or a Jake Paul fight. It was just the opportunity arose. Does it make sense? Great, let's get on with that and do that. But for his career and the long term, this is huge. He's going to have 90, 100 million people watch him chin Jake Paul. It's going to go all around the world. It's going to be billions of people are going to see the clips on social media.
Yeah.
So for his career and the long term and the longevity outside of just boxing, because no, he's not going to box for... he'll box as long as he wants to do it. But if you're looking at it, another year and a half, 2 years. He's got a big year in 2026. Hopefully we can see the Tyson Fury fight. So he has to think about the long term of his career outside of boxing. I don't think he's even looking at that right now.
Right. But you would be as his manager, and I think that the world is more exciting than it's ever been for creators. I look at John Cena and The Rock, and I think that shows what you can do. You can be a wrestler and a serious actor acting in Hollywood movies at the same time in this world now. That surely, for someone like you who's in the entertainment game, it opens up a world of opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what this fight will do for him as well. And he's always been a character that people love. Because the truth is with AJ, he's just a nice bloke.
Yeah.
He's never changed. In 13 years of knowing him, he's never changed. I took him for his medicals 13 years ago in London. And I joke with people that he won a gold medal as a basketball player. because not everyone recognised him back then. I've been on holidays with him. I've spent a lot of time around him, and he's just a nice bloke. And that's why people buy into him, because he's a genuine guy.
And what about your future? Do you want to stick in this world?
The tough bit for me is I travel. I do nearly 80 to 100 flights a year. I stay in hotels 300 nights a year, which, as glamorous as it looks, on Instagram, I have a wonderful life. And I would never complain about my life, but it's not sustainable for the long term. I've been doing it as well since I started early, because I didn't want to be at 50 years old doing the graft I'm doing now. So for me, I look at it as another 5 or 6 years. I love the idea of going out on top of something as well and saying, see you later. Thanks very much. What a ride. That was unbelievable. And I've been involved in some of the biggest events in the sport of the last 10 years all around the world. We broke the attendance record in Dallas with Canelo Alvarez, Billy Joe Saunders. We've done multiple stadium shows in the UK. We've done, stadium shows in Saudi. We've done everything. I still love it. I still have a passion for it. But I don't want to become what a lot of people in boxing do, like these bitter old people, because it's a bitter business. It's not a nice business. It's not a nice world to be in. And I'm a very positive, happy person. And I don't want to become a 50-year-old going, still involved in boxing, like what a mad business. I would happily, before I'm 40, go, thanks very much. I'm 33 now. So I look at 38, 39 as the time to go. And your goals change. I've missed out on a lot of things, but on the other sense, I've done well. But I've given up on it, especially with family, and your view changes as to what success is. And for me, when I started out, success was purely just about money. And again, we're all driven in somewhat. Money is a driving force for the majority of people, but it gets to the point where it's like, I actually want to enjoy myself, and I enjoy myself with what I'm doing now. But there's other things I'd like to go and do. I always say I'll go and open a beach bar in Bali. I'll make the best daiquiri on the beach. I'll say I want to have a flip-flop shop. And I want the biggest problem to be, what size Havaiana haven't we got today in white or blue? That's honestly what I would go and do. And it's just like your focus has changed.
Look, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think for someone of your age, and I say that respectfully because I'm pushing towards 50, 47, like sometimes it's funny because I feel like I'm a similar age to someone sitting here, then I have to remind myself I'm like 15 years older than you. But it's not very often that you have a conversation with someone where in their early 30s they already realise that if their self-worth is tied up with the job that they're doing, that it will end in a bad way, right? That is not a healthy way to live sustainably. I think the other really interesting thing for you is this idea of being the light in the room. Like, you come in here, you shake everyone's hand, you talk to everyone. And I think Barry and Eddie are exactly the same. And that is an underrated skill that can take people so far in life. Just to be the light in the room and, as you say, wake up every day as an optimist, because it won't be the perfect day. But I'm not sure what the benefit is of thinking it's going to be a shit day before it starts.
100%. And we can moan about anything. Literally moan about anything. Whereas I'm just like, oh, okay. Next thing, like, that's where I'm different from Eddie, is like, things go wrong at work. He will lose his head sometimes. And I go, wait, it's done now. And he goes, that's all you ever say. It's done. I'm like, well, we can't change it. So why are we going to sit and worry about what's happened? And that's my whole life is like that. That is my mindset for everything. And it doesn't mean I don't want the best, but it's like, if it's happened, we haven't got a time machine. So now let's just improve and go forward and get on with it in a positive manner rather than looking back in a negative manner. So that's always, that for me is the focus in everything I do. I can't wait to look back and go, wow, what a time we had, but do it on my own terms. Not the other way around.
And finally, looking back, with it being done, the Anthony Joshua Jake Paul fight is done. Do you think in years to come you will look back on this and think, actually, that was a seminal moment in boxing, because we actually, despite the initial criticism at the time, we showed people what you actually can do with creativity and ambition?
For sure, and this is where people need to open their eyes. We live in a different world now. The world is changing, the world's evolving, and you need to do things differently. And we're only as good as the clients we represent ultimately, because AJ's the one getting in the ring. We're just there getting the deals done. But these moments will all be moments we look back on and go, actually, remember that time AJ knocked out Jake Paul? in front of 100 million people.
Yeah.
Oh, that was crazy.
I mean, if you look at what you've got, you've ended up with a fighter on Netflix who doesn't even have a deal with Netflix. You're fighting a bloke where 100 million people are going to tune in and watch. It's, what is it, the second best payday of his career, it sounds like?
Up there. Up in the top few, yeah.
Top 3 or 4 best paydays of his career for probably
the easiest night's work.
The easiest night's work of his life. So
we'd all take that.
But old thinking is, well, that's not what you do when you're a former world champion.
No.
You fight the best fighters possible, then you retire, and then you disappear and you live in a nice big house. But that's outdated thinking.
Yeah, and the reality is the only opinion that matters is your own.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to judge you, everyone's going to question you, and no one's ever really going to be happy for you. Not the majority. They're going to go, oh, he did this right, did that. It's like, are you happy? Yeah.
Well, I wish you luck. I just think life's about experiencing stuff, right? Do you know what I mean? That's all it is a collection of experiences. So let's experience what it's like to fight Jake Paul, one of the most spoken about people on the planet.
I'd do it.
I think I might do it as well, but mind you, I'm nearly 50. Mind you, he likes older fighters.
I know, maybe we'll get you in there after. Maybe you could be the perfect comeback fight.
Maybe.
That's what I'm pitching Eddie as the comeback fight. I'm going to promote Eddie as the comeback fight for Jake Paul. I think that's the fight to make.
I love that. What an interesting conversation. Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, mate.
Appreciate it.
It's really interesting. What an interesting conversation. I think what shone through there is the fact that Frank has been brought up in the Barry and Eddie Hearn school of business. I mean, I know he probably doesn't like the comparisons, but when he talks, it feels like you're talking to Eddie Hearn the way that he discusses things. But to go in there at 14 and to learn the ropes, I think this is a really important lesson actually when it comes to business, right? 90% of jobs can be taught. Like you can learn these jobs on the go. And I think too often businesses don't give people like Frank the opportunity. They don't give them the chance to go and learn on the job because they think you already have to be brilliant to get the opportunity. But he is the boss of boxing at the biggest boxing promoter in the world at 33, having been there since he was 14. And if that isn't a brilliant lesson for so many businesses, then I don't know what is. And I really hope that you found it interesting when he just broke down the fight game in a way that I've never heard before. I mean, the stuff about how you have to take £1 million, £1.5 million risk on a young fighter before they're fighting for world titles and you're making money was amazing. And obviously the story about how the phone call was made about the fight between Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul, and they sort of went, well, is it loads of money and is it going to be over quickly? Yes, well then let's go for it. I just thought it was so interesting the way that he sat and shared so much with us. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Don't forget, if you hit subscribe, then it means we can grow the show. We can invite even more incredible guests like Frank to the show, and I'll see you next time for another episode of The Room Where It Happened.